Hello and welcome to Viewpoint on Ukraine Today. I'm Tamara Rosevan. Today in our studio we're discussing privatization of Ukraine's state-owned enterprises. Joining us is Ihor Bilous, the chairman of the State Property Fund of Ukraine. Welcome to Viewpoint. So this week the parliament passed a law to simplify privatization in Ukraine of its state-owned enterprises. Now, a large-scale privatization is bound to happen this year and in the coming years. How will this benefit Ukraine's economy in the long run?
Well, this is true. I mean, the parliament has adopted this law. The head of the parliament, the chairman, basically signed off. And now the law is on the way to the president for signing. So I hope the president will execute this law very quickly. And we actually officially can admit that we have this green light. So overall, the state of Ukraine will definitely benefit, 1,000% out of that, because we're about to restart a big privatization. It doesn't mean that we sell everything this year, right? But we're going to start with a big one, the nice sale of the Odessa port plant, which is a bit scandal, but a big fertilizer company owned by the state for 99.7%. This is exactly the stake that we will be offering to international investors. The demand is there. I can speak in more or less concrete days, saying that beginning of May, we'll probably announce officially the transaction with the aim to have an auction end of June and with the aim to close this transaction end of July.
Mm-hmm. So approximately how much of Ukraine's state assets will be up for auction?
So this year we have a sort of tentative or kind of flexible schedule of selling fertilizer, about 6 companies on power distribution, about 4 companies on the little CHPs, 1 power generating company. So overall is about 15 to 20 companies, a big size, will be offered to the market, right, if we are lucky to prepare them. But minimum 12 companies will be auctioned. And
these sound like they're all energy related. Now, shouldn't Ukraine keep some mixed ownership in these companies?
Well, this is the law. This is specific. So we actually, in history, we actually kept some mixed ownership, and it didn't result in anything good for Ukraine, right? It's a poor corporate governance practices and these gaps that we have in legislation which are not allowing us to benefit from minority stakes. So hence, we probably much better off offering a control stake or everything to private investors and letting him to run the business and actually start to integrate themselves into new liberalization of energy market. We are basically 90% having energy privatization this year, apart from a big fertilizer company, right? But I don't see any bad sign of that. I mean, these are all good and decent companies, right? The power companies are basically working domestically, and the fertilizer company is export-oriented.
But there are some critics of this privatization. For example, in the press, I've read that Forbes, this contributor, the Investing in Emerging Markets, Kenneth Raposa, wrote that basically Yatsenyuk is lobbying for the U.S. to buy up Ukraine's industry for flea market prices. Now, these are not necessarily good for Ukraine and are undervalued.
Well, the value is very tricky questions, and all the scandals and talks around privatization, they are happening all the time in all the countries, basically, right? I mean, today I can tell you and can tell the people that we're basically preparing very professionally to every single auction, right? Having on board a full set of advisors, financial, technical, deal advisors, right? So everything will be very transparent, and we will be attracting or inviting domestic investors as well as international investors. All information will be produced in English, Ukrainian, access to the asset, access to the management, access to kind of the fund, to government officials will be kind of allowed, and at the end of the day, we'll be offering open auction, right? So it's not like we are predetermined a special group of investors for this or that industry. It's not, right? Everything is available. Everything will be transparent and professional. So that I can guarantee.
And the value of these companies will be who is evaluating the price of these companies?
Energy business is basically valued based on the tariff, right, and regulations that we have in this country. So it has nothing to do with the crisis or that. This is a natural monopoly business, right? There's always a price on that. Right? I mean, the technical professionals or professionals can argue with me, but this is true, right? With respect to a chemical company, right, the commodity prices are a little bit down right? But this is a seasonality. The problem is we don't have a brand new asset. The asset is getting older, and we've seen a number of attempts to sell this company, and we had all sorts of political scandals in the past, and there is no assurance that tomorrow this asset will be kind of priced twice as much as today. It's not, right? We've done it 3 times, we failed, so now it's a 4th attempt. International companies are looking, they're very much interested, they're cautious whether we do this or not. This is kind of a test for us, right?
And is Ukraine cautious as well in selling off its state assets?
Well, of course we're cautious, right? I mean, we can't fail on this, right? I mean, that's why this Odessa port plant process is probably the best organized process ever in Ukraine. We never had such a professional team preparing one single asset for a sale. We never had such a broad marketing around the globe, having one big investment bank running around the globe and asking investors, right? We have 20 investors on the list, probably 5 to 7 are very serious about the sale. Some of them are coming and asking, so what will be details? What about the guarantee? When can we send technicians? When we can send financial guys to check over? Because the overall, the procedure, announcing and closing is quite short. So everybody is interested to get as much access and information as possible early on.
So how will your branch of government that you work for will ensure that there is transparency in the state asset sale?
Well, the process is kind of twofold, 2 stages. First is qualification. So we accept investors, check on who they are and what they are, basically, right? Up to a passport of the ultimate beneficiary, right? And basically, this is kind of sanctions, FAT, offshore, origin of money, etc. So if we greenline investors together with other organizations that will comprise this group, then we kind of let investors to go and study the asset, right? Analyze it, see it, talk, have the documents, legal, financial, everything. If they like the asset, they bring the basically cash guarantee, which is expected to be 5% of starting price, and then there is an auction date. So they come to the room and raise their hand. The winner gets it all, right? Basically, and 7 days after winning the auction, the winner has to sign SPA, and 30 days from the signing, they have to close the transaction. That's pretty much it.
I see. So and Russian companies are not allowed to take part in the auction.
Not allowed. Yes. It's the state aggressor, right? Basically, the Russian buyers with identities and the passports are not allowed to participate in our privatization today because of the law, right? But there are other investors. I mean,
of course. But is there a way where a Russian company can find a loophole and potentially buy Ukrainian state assets?
Today, we've got basically many Russians with other passports, with passports of other countries, right? And but this is kind of a technical question, and that's why we will have a number of organizations and the police and an investigation sitting in the group and basically kind of preparing the verdict. And this investor is eligible or not, right? So we are here basically to organize and ensure that the process will be transparent, right? I mean, the president, the prime minister, the parliament, everybody in the government today is basically responsible. It's not just our dividend. It's not just the state property fund or Ihor Bilous is willing to do this privatization. This privatization is prerequisite for our success, for going forward. So everybody is very cautious. Everybody understands that this is kind of very important, right? It's as important as basically adopting the budget for the country. Let's take it all like this, right? And the price is important, right? But the professional and transparent auction is even more important. Basically, that we can show to the world that here we are, we have changed, right? We can sell it openly. We can talk to proper investors. We can ensure the deal is done properly. We can ensure that investors will be protected going forward, right? And they will kind of have successful operations in Ukraine going forward. That's it.
Very well made point. Thank you so much for coming into our studio today.
Thank you very much.
This has been Mr. Ihor Bilous, the chairman of the State Property Fund of Ukraine. We've been discussing privatization in Ukraine. You've been watching Viewpoint on Ukraine Today.